Welcome back! Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's start the video. After being reborn, I avoided riding in the same luxury car with Stella, Sterling reminding myself I am only the driver's son. Suddenly, she glanced at the empty seat and for the first time called the driver asking why he was leaving and whether he was not waiting for Jack. He replied that Jack had something to do with a classmate and would go home by bus. Her expression darkened because in the past he never missed riding with her. She decided distancing herself from him was the right choice. That day, I walked for more than 2 hours to the Sterling mansion, entered the servants' quarters. Stella saw me from the balcony, called my name, but I ignored her. When I entered, she stopped the door with her foot and asked why I did not ride with her. I answered coldly that she is the mansion owner's daughter, and I am the driver's son, and I should know my place. She told me to answer my father myself and left while I remained unaffected. The next day, I went to the bus station. The bus was crowded. A middle-aged man stood too close to me. Suddenly, a beautiful girl carrying a cactus pushed through the crowd, hit his hand and took his place, then walked away coldly. The man left angrily. I asked her if she was making fun of me. She warned me to be careful because people like him are common. I realized she was helping me. Thanked her. She introduced herself as Evie from Ashford, and I introduced myself as Jack from Burwood. When we got off, we found the colleges close, but she left quickly before I could say more. After I returned to the college, the students are excited for the freshman festival, and Stella will close the show while I am not interested, but Rico forces me to go, and I sit in the third row. A logistics member asks me to carry a box of bread backstage. I put it on the table and glance at the dressing room, remembering I used to bring Stella bread without nuts because of her allergy, but this time I do not care. Inside the room, someone knocks. The girl tries to open, but Stella reaches, first opens angrily and says, "I will not eat anything," then asks, "Who are you?" The man says, "Miss Sterling. I heard you have a performance today." She shuts the door, annoyed, and sits with a cold aura. Tara asks if she is not interested in Ryan. Stella says she did not pay attention. Tara is surprised and asks who she was thinking about. Stella stays silent but looks tense because Jack is not there like before, so she suddenly stands up and walks out. And only then she sees me, and all the people in the hall are extremely excited as soon as they see her, while I am sitting, looking at my phone and putting on my headphones, as if I am annoyed by the noise around me. Stella finishes her singing, and the entire hall explodes with applause and cheering, and people go up to the stage carrying flowers, and she has already received many bouquets, but she does not leave and stays on stage unable to understand, and her eyes keep drifting toward me as if she is waiting for something in the third row. Rico comes back holding 2 bouquets and gives me one and says, "Jack, I am going to Stella with the flowers." "Come on, let us go," I tell him. "No, I am not going up. And if I give them to anyone, I would rather give them to a stray dog." Then I look toward the stage, and suddenly something from my past life about Tara comes to my mind, and how she helped me many times, so I tell myself, "Fine, let us go up together." While Stella is on stage, her mind returns to memories of her past life, and she remembers that before, I never used to take flowers from her. So this time, she decides to accept them because she is sure that I truly loved her. Even if she does not love me the same way, but she has feelings toward me. I go up the stairs and walk toward the stage without thinking, and she is standing, waiting for me, and looking at me. and when I get close, she extends her hand to take the flowers from me. But I pass right by her and give the flowers to Tara, who is standing behind her, and say, "Your performance was beautiful. Can I give this to you?" Tara looks at me for 2 seconds, surprised, then takes it and says, "Thank you," and I walk away without looking at Stella at all. Tara looks at Stella, confused, and Stella turns to her, angrily, and says, "What exactly is between you and Jack?" She is surprised and says we do not even know each other, and Stella feels a fire inside her and thinks that something is not right. After I return to the Sterling mansion, it is already past 10 at night, and my father meets me and asks if I saw Miss Sterling at school, and tells me that she asked him not to pick her up, and she has not returned yet, and her phone is off, and Mrs. Sterling is searching for her. Everywhere, I take out my phone and open the class group and send them a message telling them to inform Mrs. Sterling that they went to karaoke, and I see in the photos that Stella is sitting next to a handsome guy named Zane, and I understand that she has returned to the same old story in the morning. So I wake up early and leave before anyone sees me. As soon as I get on the bus, I see Evie, and today she is carrying a very beautiful, succulent plant. And I feel worried that the same suspicious man might be on the bus. So I move closer to her, greet her with a smile, and sit next to her to protect her. She shifts a little and gives me space, and I start talking to her and ask her, "What is this beautiful plant?" She tells me. It is a neon haworthia. I ask her, "Do you like it?" And I tell her, "It is very beautiful, like crystals." Suddenly, without thinking, she gives me the pot and says, "Take it." I am surprised and say, "Really?" She says, "Since you like it, take it." I hesitate for a moment, then accept it and thank her, and promise to bring her bubble tea next time the bus arrives, and we get off. And she does not walk away quickly like before, and actually stops to say goodbye. And I am surprised and respond to her. Then I go to the university, carrying the plant as if it is a treasure. Rico suddenly comes and sits next to me and says that Stella is now with the most popular guy in the university named Zane, and I tell him I do not care. He explains that Zane's life became messy and he returned from abroad and is trying to get close to Stella, and that Stella seems attached to him, and I tell him it is fine, I do not care. Then Rico focuses on the plant and says it looks very expensive. I get surprised and search and find that its price is actually very high, and I understand that Evie was taking very good care of it, so I send her a picture and ask, "When should I return it to you?" She replies with a question mark and says, "You are the one who said you liked it. Why would you return it?" I tell her I am afraid of losing it. She refuses and sends me a care guide and says, "If you need anything, contact me." Then Rico says that even the pot itself looks very expensive, so I tell him to be quiet, and I go back home, carrying it carefully as if it is gold. When I arrive, I find Diane, my father's wife, telling me that Mrs. Sterling wants to see me as soon as I hear her name. I get tense and remember my past life and how she always used to call me whenever her daughter left the house. I go to meet her, and she asks me about Stella, who has not been attending, and she asks me to watch her and send her pictures. And I know she wants that so she can find out who Stella spends her time with, and she is close to punishing her, but Diane pressures me and says there is nothing difficult. It is just taking pictures. I agree on the outside, but inside, I decide that I will not get involved in this again, and I leave, knowing that this game will not repeat like before. I used to do obvious things to get closer to Stella in the past period, And there is no doubt that Madame Sterling noticed that. And since Stella already hates being watched, Madame Sterling decided to use that for her benefit and asked me to take pictures of her at school, which means she hit two birds with one stone. Stella will hate me more, and Zane will also be pushed away from her. After 10 at night, Stella finally returns to the mansion and immediately gets into a loud argument with Madame Sterling that lasts about an hour. Then she leaves the villa very angry and heads toward the wing next to the servants' building in front of my window. And in my past life, I used to always watch her from that same window. Stella keeps looking toward the window with a cold expression waiting and starts counting in her mind because she expected that, like every time after about 20 minutes, I would come out to see her or bring her food or do anything. Suddenly the window closes and the curtain is drawn. Stella stands there shocked, unable to believe what happened, and moves closer as if she is about to knock on the window, while angry. Honestly, I did not expect her to knock. She pauses for a few seconds, then calls out and says she needs something. I respond and say, "Do you need anything, Miss Sterling?" She looks at me sharply and asks, "Why did you close the window?" I tell her for privacy. I do not like anyone looking at me while I am in my room. She gets angry and says coldly, "Fine, keep it closed and do not open it again." Inside, I feel annoyed and think that she is arrogant. Suddenly, she stops, turns back and looks at me, and says, "My mother asked you to take pictures of me at school, right?" I get surprised and ask how she knew, and I tell her, "Do not worry, I will not watch you, or do that." She mocks calmly and says, "Then take pictures of me if she wants that." I will not run away from school. Then she leaves, and suddenly I call her and stop her and take out my phone and say, "For documentation, can you repeat that again? So it does not turn against me later." She gets very angry and says, "Record whatever you want," and leaves while furious. I save the video, feel relieved and go to sleep normally, but I did not know that she stayed angry all night and could not sleep. The next morning, she had an early lecture and got into the car and instinctively looked at the seat where I was supposed to be sitting as usual, but it was empty. After a while, on the road, she saw me walking in the street, carrying a carton of milk, and I always like to drink milk in the morning and heat it and take it with me. She looked at me and stayed silent for 2 seconds, then told the driver to stop and called me and said, "Get in." I refused and said, "Thank you, Miss Sterling. I will go by public transport." She mocked and said, "As you wish." And the car left. I got on the bus and found Evie there. I greeted her, and she noticed me, and we started talking calmly. I gave her the milk, and we talked about her garden. Then she told me to come see her garden, and that she also has a fish tank suddenly while she was walking. She stopped because she saw Stella standing with her friends. Stella was looking at me while I was holding the milk, and her friend said, "Isn't that your driver? Looks like he left you or found someone else." Those words hit Stella hard, and she looked at me and said coldly, "So you stopped riding with us and found someone else?" I got angry and said, "I did not say anything wrong." She then told Evie that I am the driver's son, and I felt very embarrassed. And Evie held on to me and said, "Do not apologize." I tried to move her away from the situation and told her to go. Stella kept looking at me mockingly, and I snapped and said, "What is wrong with you?" It was the first time someone spoke to her. Like that, she went silent, looked at me, then walked away quickly. I entered the school, feeling upset, and sent messages to Evie, and I did not know how to apologize properly, and she told me not to worry. I felt guilty after that. Stella entered the classroom and sat at the back, and I took a picture of her and sent it to Madam Sterling, and from there, people started talking and saying that I am obsessed with Stella and that I take pictures of her everywhere. And the situation escalated in the group, and my friend told me that they were saying that I chase her and take pictures of her at the college, and I was confused because Madam Sterling was the one who asked me to do that, but people misunderstood it. Then I saw Stella in the cafeteria, and she looked at me in a strange way, and through all of this, I felt that the situation would grow and would not end easily in my past life. I had to arrange every small coincidence to get closer to Stella and see her. I was literally planning every encounter just to see her again. But now, after returning to life and trying to avoid her with all my effort, I keep running into her everywhere as if I cannot escape from her at all. Suddenly, while looking at me with a heavy gaze, she said, "You have been taking pictures of me for 2 days, and you did not say a single word about it." I stayed silent for a moment while she kept staring at me with a pressuring look as if she wanted to understand me from the inside. Then she said, "You must have saved my pictures on your phone, right?" I looked at her calmly and said, "You were skipping lectures. That is why Madam Sterling put me in this situation. Now that you attend every day, she is satisfied. So what exactly am I supposed to report? And by the way, I did not save any picture of you. Not even one." Stella's eyes moved as if she was surprised or even strangely upset. And she said, "So you took all those pictures and did not save a single one?" I replied, "Why would I even keep them?" "Good luck with your life?" She got angry but laughed in a provoking way and said, "I do not believe you, Jack. You are definitely into me, but you do not want to admit it inside." I remembered that, in my past life, I would have confessed at that exact moment, but now I am sure that I do not feel anything toward her. So I took out my phone, opened the chat with Madam Sterling, and said, "If you do not believe me, see for yourself." Stella grabbed the phone from me and started looking, and found that the chat was full of pictures of her entering or leaving class, but all of them were taken from a distance, or from her back or the side of her face, and not a single clear picture of her face. At that moment, her expression changed immediately, and she said angrily, "You are shameless. You are watching me, and you cannot even take a proper picture of my face. Do you hate looking at me that much?" I kept my face steady and said, "Your face is not worth the storage space." She smiled a cold smile and said, "Then who deserves that space?" Evie. Why did she bring Evie into this? She said her name in a provoking way, as if she wanted to irritate me more. Then she said, "She is older than you too. Why do you talk to her normally, but not to me? What exactly is between you and her?" I took the phone and said, "Whatever is between me and her has nothing to do with you." Her face tightened suddenly, and in anger, she grabbed my hand and knocked the phone to the ground, and the screen shattered. I looked at it shocked and said, "Are you crazy? You broke my phone. You will pay for it. I will send the bill to Madam Sterling." I left her and walked away because I could not stand staying with her for another second. Stella stood there, stomping her feet in anger. She had thought that the whole picture situation meant that I was interested in her or liked her, and that I would go back home and keep those pictures and look at them. But the truth turned out to be completely the opposite. While I was walking through the food street on my way back to the university, I did not notice that Evie was sitting and eating with her friends in the same street she saw me, and stayed silent and did not call me. She was wearing messy clothes from the agriculture lab, and there was dirt on them, and she did not want me to see her like that. And she also noticed from my expression that something was wrong. So she stayed quiet after I left. Her friends looked at me and said, "Is this the person you were talking about? He looks very normal. How can he be a stalker?" Evie was confused and said, "What are you talking about, stalker?" They told her, "Do you not know Stella Sterling, the one everyone is talking about? They say that her driver's son is very into her, and he has been taking pictures of her every day at the university." One of her friends opened a post and said, "Look, someone is taking obsessive pictures of her, and the one doing it is this guy in the picture." It was me holding my phone and taking a picture of her from behind. Evie stayed silent for a moment and remembered what Stella said in the morning and thought to herself, "Is Jack really into Stella?" Then she decided that the post must be removed because it could harm me. And when she returned to the university, she found that the post had disappeared and all the talk about it was erased. Rico was shocked and said, "It looks like the Sterling family is very powerful. They can remove anything from the internet easily." I felt that something was not normal, but I was sure that Stella was not the one who did this. So who did on the third day? As soon as I got close to the classroom door, Stella came quickly and said, "Today is Zane's birthday, and I have to go get him a gift cover for me. Today and tomorrow I will attend the class like an angel." She said it as if it was something normal, and I raised my phone and took a picture of her and said, "Fine. Go," and I opened the app to send the picture to Madam Sterling, but Stella snatched the phone from me and said, "Your behavior has become illogical. I told you it is Zane's birthday, and I will be back by 8. What is so hard about covering for me?" For one day, I replied calmly and said, "It is hard. Madam Sterling is not easy." I knew this from my past life at that moment. Stella's eyes shined and she said, "And you still say you are not into me earlier. You were jealous," I replied sarcastically. "Jealous? You need to see a doctor." Stella grabbed the phone, got into the car, and drove away quickly, and I ran after her, but she disappeared. I stood there feeling stuck between Madame Sterling and Stella, and I did not know what to do. I decided that I had to leave this job and look for another one to make up for it, and I knew that without my phone, I could not do anything. At the same time, Evie was sitting on the bus waiting for me, and I did not come, and she started to think that I was avoiding her. She sent me a message about a plant she has called Neon Haworthia and asked me about it, and I did not reply. She sent another message and still got no response. Then she found out that she was blocked. And that was not from me, it was someone else, maybe Stella. At that moment, I was riding a rented bicycle in the rain when I heard Evie calling my name. I stopped and she said, "Why have you been avoiding me?" I told her everything about the phone and the pictures, and she was very surprised. Then the rain got heavier, so we went to take shelter and sat in a bubble tea shop. Both of us were silent, but we both felt that there were many things left unsaid. At the same time, I did not know that Zane on his birthday was trying to take a serious step with Stella, but Stella was not happy inside, like he expected, because her heart was still confused. She was standing looking at the heavy rain with slightly furrowed brows, and she reached into her pocket and took out a phone with a broken screen. Zane looked at it in shock and felt that something was wrong and said, "Whose phone is this?" Stella was distracted and replied coldly, "It is Jack's, the driver's." Son Zane was confused and asked, "Why do you have his phone?" Stella pressed on the cracked screen and looked at the time. It was 8:40. She had taken the phone from him to stop him from informing Madame Sterling that she had skipped school to spend time with Zane. Now it was late and the rain was heavy, and she did not know where Jack was. She wanted to stay with Zane, but knew she had to go back, so she told him, "Come back with me today, and tomorrow I will take you to school." Zane hesitated because he had not entered the Sterling mansion for a long time, and that made him feel that things were serious. When they arrived at 9, the first thing Stella said to the servant was, "Tell Jack to come see me." The servant quickly replied, "Jack has not returned yet." Miss Stella got angry for a moment and thought, how has he not returned? She had come back specifically to give him the phone. The rain was strong and the servant said, "The weather is bad, and maybe he did not have an umbrella. Let me call him and find out where he is, and we will send someone to get him." The phone in her hand started ringing at that moment. She silenced it angrily and said, "It is not necessary. If he needed something, he would have bought an umbrella," but suddenly she remembered that he had no phone and no money, so she felt that she could not leave him outside and said, "Fine, I will go get him myself from the school." The servant tried to stop her and said, "Madame Sterling is waiting for you, and is very angry and will be furious when she sees you arrive with Zane," and he told Zane to go rest in a guest room. But Zane looked at Stella with a disappointed expression and said, "Can I stay in your room?" The servant was shocked, but Stella ignored him and said to Zane, "Sorry, I have to deal with my mother first. Go wait in my room, I will not be long." At the same time, Evie was sitting with him in a cafe, and the rain kept falling with no sign of stopping. She said, "Instead of sitting like this, let us go watch a movie upstairs." He hesitated and said, "I am not sure if it is normal for us to go watch a movie together." She said, "Do not worry," and stood up. Decisively, opened her phone and said, "The movie everyone is talking about starts in 20 minutes and there are still tickets." He got confused, said, "I do not want popcorn," but then found himself following her without making a decision. After the movie ended before 11 at night, the rain became lighter. Evie said shyly that she kept him for too long and asked if someone at home would worry about him. He said he called his father using her phone and there was no problem, and that the movie was good and made him forget the Sterling family for a while. But now he had to go back and face Madame Sterling's anger. Evie asked for his address to call him a taxi, and at 11 he arrived at the mansion and got out of the taxi. Thanking her after the car left, he entered the gate and saw a shadow standing in the dark. His heart jumped when he looked closely. He saw Stella staring at him with a heavy look, and she said coldly, "I told you to come back at 8. Why are you late?" He replied that his life is his own, and he does not need to report to her, and asked for his phone. She was still holding it, and did not want to give it back, and looked at him and said, "Who was that girl with you?" He was surprised, and said she was a kind girl from the university who helped him. The rain was heavy, and he could not buy anything, so she gave him her cap. Stella laughed mockingly and said, "A cap worth 8,000. Looks like you found a better target than me." He got annoyed and said, "Think whatever you want. If sarcasm makes you feel better, then consider it the best thing about your day." Stella got more upset because he became cold toward her, and at the same time, she felt anger and confusion, especially since she had argued with her mother because of Zane, and the whole house was tense. After that, He went to his room and saw Zane waiting in the garden, looking scared. He rushed to him, and Zane said that her mother pressured them, and Madame Sterling wanted to throw him out, and he did not want to stay. Stella hugged him and said, "Do not worry, I brought you here. No one will throw you out, and if my mother says anything, I will go to my grandfather." At that moment, he watched them from a distance and felt that her behavior was strange. Then he went to his room, opened his phone, and searched for Evie's profile and found it removed. Suddenly, he received a request from her. He was surprised, accepted it, and sent. "Did you reach home?" She replied quickly. "Yes, I did. Thank you for asking." After a moment of hesitation, he sent her 200 and said this is for the movie and the taxi. She refused and said, "Do not send money, just treat me next time to a movie or dinner." He agreed and said, "Fine, dinner is on me tomorrow." Evie smiled softly, and her expression became gentle and said, "Deal." The next day, the Sterling Manor event was about to begin. Madame Sterling woke up very early and called the servant and asked what happened. "Yesterday, did Zane not leave and stay all night with Stella?" The servant nodded sadly and said that Stella did not allow them to throw him out. Madame Sterling's face changed completely and filled with anger, and she said, "So Stella is entering a relationship, fine, but I will not allow Zane's family. His father is in prison, a family full of problems, and I do not want a grandchild from such a family." After thinking for a moment, she told the servant to bring the family doctor to prepare something. When I left my room, I heard the servants talking, saying Madame Sterling is strangely calm today, and they were surprised that she did not explode when she saw Zane sitting at the table. At that moment, I was walking with my mind full of thoughts in my past life. Stella never brought Zane into the house. There was nothing official between them until he traveled, and then she and I entered a relationship the first time I entered the mansion. As her lover, Madame Sterling was very kind to the point that I believed her, but the truth was that she was poisoning me, and when Stella found out, she left the situation and walked away, saying she could not face her mother, and I was waiting to see what would happen this time. With Zane, suddenly the servant stopped me and said, "Jack, Madame Sterling wants to see you." I entered and found her sitting at the table with Stella and Zane, and her face was calm as if nothing had happened. She told Zane that she was not against him personally, but she was worried about Stella's future and her studies. Zane smiled and said he would make sure she focused. At that moment, she placed a bowl of soup in front of him and told him to eat since he looked tired. Stella was sitting beside them, and her face looked worn out and uncomfortable. Then I entered, and as soon as Stella saw me, she adjusted her posture. I did not look at her, and said, "Madame Sterling, you asked for me." She smiled and said she knew what happened yesterday, and that Stella took my phone, so I would not send pictures. Then she said I did not need to continue watching her, and gave me a new phone to replace the broken one, and thanked me for my effort, and said my job was finished, because Zane would be responsible for her. From now on, Zane smiled and said he would take care of her, and inside I laughed, but on the outside, I stayed calm and thanked her and said I would go to school. Stella stood up quickly and said she would go, as well. Suddenly Zane stood holding his stomach, saying he felt very sick, and his face changed. Stella said, "Let us go to the hospital." On the way, the driver asked Zane what he ate, and he said soup. At that moment, Stella remembered something from her past life when she brought Jack home, and he had the same pain, and it turned out he was poisoned with an overdose, and she had argued with him and did not believe him, and now the same symptoms were happening in front of her. She told the driver to stop and went back to the mansion quickly. She stood in front of her mother and asked, "Did something happen to Zane's food?" Madame Sterling got angry and said, "Are you accusing me? I am your mother. How could I do that?" Stella stood confused, but inside, she felt strong guilt because, in her past life, she always chose her mother over Jack, and she lived with him for years without a child, and her mother was always pressuring them. Suddenly, Stella exploded and said, "How can you be so cruel to do this?" I left the mansion and got on the bus, and saw Evie sitting there. I sat next to her and greeted her. She said good morning and asked me about the cap. I said I would wash it and return it tomorrow. She asked if I had work, and I said I had a shift at a restaurant called Ember Inn. She was surprised because it belonged to her family. After we got off, she asked if I would work every day, and I said yes from 7 to 9. And then each of us went our own way. Stella disappeared from both the house and the school for 2 days. And then when I went to work, I found her entering with her friends, and she looked at me while I was carrying dishes. After a few days, Zane was discharged from the hospital and said that because of the medication, he might not be able to have children for a while. Stella was hiding the truth about her mother from him and did not know what to tell him, and all she could think about was wanting to see Jack. I was standing at work dealing with difficult customers. One woman was bothering me with too many questions. Suddenly, Stella entered angrily and, without saying anything, kicked the table with her foot. I was shocked and ran toward her to stop her, but she stood in front of the woman and said, "Either you eat or you leave." The woman stood up angrily and said, "Who are you?" Suddenly Stella hit her, and the whole place turned into a fight, and I stood there unable to believe what was happening. Tara and Claire rushed in immediately. Tara shouted loudly, and without thinking, jumped into the fight, and Claire followed her right away. Within seconds, the whole place turned into chaos. I grabbed the emergency radio and informed. The supervisor rushed in with 5 security guards, and with difficulty they managed to separate them. The woman in the middle never expected what happened. Her appearance was messed up. Her lips were split, and her eye was swollen, and Stella the whole time was not paying attention to the others. She was focused only on that woman. The woman was screaming, collapsing in anger, and said she would call the police and file a case against the restaurant. The restaurant manager, Ross, rushed out of his office as soon as he heard the news, looking terrified when he saw Stella among the crowd. His face changed as if his heart dropped. He hurried toward her and said nervously, "Miss Sterling, what brought you here today, and why did you not inform us earlier?" It was clear he was very worried because he knew her status in the restaurant and that she always had a private room reserved. But when he looked closely at her, he saw that she was disheveled, her hair messy and her clothes untidy, which meant she had been in a real fight. He was shocked and said, "Who dared to do this to Miss Sterling?" The woman who was hit was still shouting, saying I was minding my own business and your server disrespected me, and then one of her friends hit me. "I will call the police and shut this place down." Ross turned toward me, and I opened my mouth to speak, but Stella stepped in front of me and said coldly, "He has nothing to do with it. I am the one who hit her. And if you want to complain, then go ahead." Tara was holding her phone and said calmly, "Let us call the lawyer, and then we will sit and eat. We are hungry." Ross quickly understood that the situation was serious and signaled to security to take the three women to a private room. Then he came close to me and said quietly, "Stay focused and be careful with Miss Sterling. Do not make a single mistake. Do you understand?" I nodded and he walked after them, knowing that if this situation escalated, it would be a disaster for the restaurant, especially since it serves wealthy and famous clients, and any scandal could destroy its reputation. At that moment, the supervisor came to me and calmly said that management had decided to pay me my dues and let me go. Because of the incident, I was a bit shocked, but I had expected it. I entered Stella's room and heard her saying angrily, "I hit her, so what Jack said, are you blaming me? I was helping you. She wants your money or your university loan. Is that what you think of me?" I stood there unable to respond and said calmly, "Miss Sterling, I am not blaming you, but the situation is out of control, and if we go back home, Madam Sterling will definitely ask about me and cause a problem as soon as I mentioned her mother." Stella slammed her hand on the table. Tara said, "Calm down, Stella." But Stella looked at me angrily and said, "You just follow my mother's orders. Anything she says you do." I stood calmly and said, "I am not doing this for her. I am just tired, and I do not want trouble around me. Please stay away from me." Her face turned red, and she said, "Are you saying this just to hurt me?" I left the room and went to the supervisor who was waiting outside. He asked me, "Do you know Miss Sterling?" I said calmly, "She is in my school." He felt there was something more, but did not push, and told me with regret that my job was over and I could not continue. After what happened, I sighed and said, "It is fine," and left the room feeling a bit frustrated, but trying to stay composed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you soon.